another episode of Trans Confessions, a very queer journey. I am your host, Jynx. I am so happy to have you all here with me today. This is season one's finale, so this is the last episode I will be doing this season. At least the last live one. You guys will get one more bonus episode that you'll be able to watch on YouTube, you'll be able to watch on my website. That's going to come out sometime around July, maybe August, before season two begins. And that's going to be, well, more or less an episode documenting the surgeries I'm about to go through. So we've already started preparing for that. So I hope everyone gets a chance to actually be there. Would love to have you. Today's episode, because it is the last of the season, I'm going to tell you my story. I've gone through now, this is 25 episodes, plus myriads of content made elsewhere. Discussing other people's stories, other people's issues, answering questions, things of that particular nature, but not really talking so much about my story or what I've gone through, at least not live on the air. So today we're going to go through that as best as I can. We're also going to do a little bit of Q&A with the viewers, so long as they're appropriate. But before we begin any of that, let's go ahead and get through all the legal mumbo jumbo. So this show has explicit triggering content. Viewer discretion is absolutely advised. If you are under the age of 18, hell, if you're under the age of 21, I wouldn't watch it, to be honest. If you are over those ages and you have little ones in your area that are under those ages, again, discretion is advised. We talk about subjects that are very adult-oriented and often not very appropriate for kids, so it'd be in the best interest to make sure that they are not around when we're discussing these things. On top of that, we also want to let everyone know we do stream live. I stream live on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. I do not really stream live on any other platform, although I do sometimes bring TikTok into the fray. They are not incorporated inside of my system, so it's very difficult to interact with those folks when they ask questions, because that system is not really designed for a podcast or a show style thing. It's more like, sitting in your living room, not doing shit. That's what TikTok is good for. So, although we do bring TikTok in there, not a good platform to watch this live on, because oftentimes I won't see your comments and I will not see your questions. We do our shows when we are live and during season, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, although I think next season we may only do it twice a week rather than 3 times a week. This gives me a bit more time to come up with content, honestly. Bring on guests, because I want to have a lot more guests on the show. So, I've been talking to some very, very big gamers who do it for a living. They make their living and quite a lot of money off of gaming. We want to have them on next season, as well as a lot of people who are in the political sphere and also happen to be members of the LGBTQIA, which I think is wonderful. So when you have a chance, you want to look at some old episodes, you want to look at other videos, my website is always updated. We're always putting new stuff, new content, new stuff in the merchandise store, the swag store, different tiles of subscriptions, as well as new content in our Discord server. So when you get an opportunity, please check out the website. The website here at the bottom of your screen is the best place for you to go to get all things, well, Jynx. So let's move right into the show. As this is my last episode, I'm not going to make it a very long episode. I want to make this a more useful episode for folks, and that is giving them content that they're always asking me. These are questions I get asked all the time that most of the time I don't have the opportunity during my show to discuss, because the show's not about that. The show's about something else. So I wanted to use this last episode for this season to tell the story. And a lot of these questions that get asked are bits and pieces of my story. So why not give people what they're asking for? So let's begin. I am a transgendered woman. I've always been a transgendered woman. Even when I was younger, I may not have presented as a transgender woman, but I still was anyway. My childhood was, well, no different than I think anybody else's. I'm not special. I'm not that unique, if you will. I grew up in the 80s. I was an 80s kid. Rat tail, long hair, running around listening to big hair music with my older sister. I don't think I was really doing anything different than anybody else. I had, well, 80s parents. I grew up with the 80s mentality. And to be quite honest, although obviously hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of transgender people existed in the 80s, either as children or as adults or, well, whatever. Some of them out, most of them not. I didn't have a lot of role models at all growing up that could answer the kinds of questions that I had. Although I don't hold any hard feelings against my parents, and I won't, they didn't know. They had no idea what this was. Most people didn't. It wasn't commonly talked about. And when it was talked about, it usually wasn't talked about in a positive light. It was generally talked about in a negative or a back room quiet light. So I spent most of my childhood, my youth, being very confused and, well, hiding, as I think most trans kids do. They're afraid to say something. They're afraid to come out and ask questions that may have them looked at in a very negative way. I was no different. I wasn't. Now, I was that kid, though, that would act out on what I was questioning, where I was confused. I was very, very, very vocal as a person with what I was feeling. So it was not unusual for me as a very young person to wear my sister's clothes, secretly put on my sister's makeup. Not that I was any good at it. I certainly wasn't. My mom has assured me of that. But I didn't care. I felt better when I did those things. I felt way better. I do want to apologize for those folks on TikTok. I am doing a live show. I can see your comments. And Tiffany, it's so good to see you. It's been a long time. And yes, I did get my surgery. The thing with my parents was when I did those things when I was younger, most of which I'm very recently being reminded of or remembering. A lot of that stuff I'd locked away for years. I think my parents let me do what I was going to do because it was just, innocent play to them. That's how they saw it. Innocent play. So, they let it go on for as long as they felt like tolerating it, I suppose. And then they didn't. As I got older, again, trigger warning, 80s. Living in the 80s, they did not see this as appropriate behavior. So by around 88, 89, I'm 9 years old, or 10, they weren't going to let that continue to happen. And that was very discouraging. It was painful to me. I remember distinctly it being quite painful that the way I wanted to be, the way I saw myself when I closed my eyes, was not my reality when my eyes opened. When I opened my eyes as a young person and I looked in the mirror, I didn't see me staring back. I saw something else. I saw something that infuriated me and often made me cry. Now, I'm not saying every other transgender person out there goes through this exact same thing. They don't. Everybody is different. I'm only telling you what I went through. Now, I never had a terrible relationship with my parents. Both of my parents were always there. They still are. Now, I grew up with parents that just did not understand. I did not understand. I had no idea. None. I can't really hold anger towards my parents for not being completely accepting and forthcoming of whatever it was I thought I was back then because they had no clue. And there really wasn't any resources for them to go research. Not in any great lengths. Society back then also, much like today, judges. Judges badly and needlessly. But I think it was. I really do believe it was worse in the 70s and the 80s. For me, my saving grace was the 90s. As stupid as that sounds, my saving grace was the 90s. I hit teenage years in the 90s. I was a complete grunge head. Nirvana all the way. I had my flannel shirts. I looked, even though nobody talked about non-binary back in the 80s and 90s, at least not in any great lengths, I was absolutely the epitome of fucking non-binary. I was so androgynous in my teenage years because that's what made me feel better. I didn't dress like a boy and I didn't dress like a girl. I dressed like whatever. Half the time I looked like a flannel amorphous blob. And I was perfectly content with that. You know, I get a lot of negative trolls, the people who want to come in and run their mouth because they think they're important. They will come in and say things, oh, you were a dork, or you didn't have any friends, and nobody knew you, and that's why you're acting out this way. I'm like, listen, I'm not a teenager, and your stupid, brainless insults have no effect on me. But truth be told, no, that wasn't the case at all. I was a social butterfly. I had tons of friends. Lots of people liked me for who I was. Lots of people liked me because I was that kid that didn't give a fuck. I was a class clown, but that wasn't my only trait. I just didn't care what other people thought. I still don't. But, yeah, I was wildly popular, and I floated between different social groups because I didn't define myself as any one group, nor did I completely fit in with any one group. So it allowed me to hop from one circle of friends to another. So, I mean, I hung out with the guys who played sports. I hung out with the guys that played Dungeons and Dragons in the cafeteria. I hung out with the cheerleading squad. Most people back then thought I watched the cheerleaders because, oh, it's just a horny boy who wanted to look at the girls. It's like, no, I was actually jealous because they could move in ways I couldn't. And I really loved their outfits. So, there's that. You know, I was on yearbook. I was on the school newspaper, school political club. I was on the wrestling team for very obvious reasons. I was good at it. I played baseball. I played basketball, although I sucked horribly at basketball. I couldn't hold on to that fucking ball to save my life, so my nickname literally was Butterfingers. No one would throw the ball to me because I would just drop it. I was told by my doctor I was not allowed to play football because when I was young I had chronic asthma. I don't have it anymore, thank goodness. But yeah, they said a good hit to the chest would kill me. I was like, well, shit. Because I did. I actually wanted to play football. Looked like a really fun sport. But I didn't. All things considered, I had about as well-rounded and diverse of a childhood as most people do. Thank you, everybody. I thought my childhood was well, I mean, average. No different and no more special than anybody else's. But there was always something. There was always something that has been plaguing the back of my mind. Even through my androgynous, non binary teenage years in the 90s, something always bothered me. Hi, Jambles. Welcome to the show. So, another content creator that I follow and watch probably expressed it really, really well. Because I do get asked this question all of the time. What is it like being transgender? What is it like growing up transgender? And this content creator did an amazing job shortening it down and expressing kind of what it feels like. Now, again, everyone's experience is going to be different. So this does not apply as a one size fits all solution here. Being transgender is like going through your entire life with a sharp rock in your shoe. That's what it's like. It's like going through your whole life with a sharp rock in your shoe. It's painful, it's exhausting, and it gets really fucking old. And one day you're sitting down with your friend because you just assume as a young person, everybody feels this way. And you're talking to your buddy and you're like, hey, I'm just tired. I'm so sick and tired. My feet are killing me. I don't understand. Don't your feet hurt you too? And your friend's like, no. Sounds like you've got a rock in your shoe. Maybe you should take the rock out of your shoe. And you're like, well, I can't take the rock out of my shoe. That doesn't make any sense. Although secretly you're lying because you've been watching YouTube videos for a few years of other people like, hey, this is me 2 years after taking the rock out of my shoe. And you start crying to yourself. Because in reality, you just thought, I can't take the rock out of my shoe. So yeah, roughly, that's exactly what that felt like to me. I have always expressed it like this because some trans people have horrible childhoods and they do have terrible lives leading up to them eventually coming out. I'm not saying my childhood and my life was amazing. It wasn't. But it wasn't bad either. I mean, I have my doctorates. I did that pre-transition. I've owned 3 businesses. I did that pre-transition. I joined and served in the military. Now, I still am in the military. But I did all that pre-transition. And I've got 5 wonderful children. And I did all of that pre-transition. I'm not rich, but I'm definitely independent. I'm financially independent. I don't require help or assistance or whatever else. I'm perfectly capable of doing whatever I want, whenever I want, anytime I want. And I achieved all of that pre-transition. So most people ask me, and I get these questions all the time, well, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you do all of these things to yourself when it sounds like you had everything you've ever wanted? Because I didn't. I didn't. To me, every day of my life was building this cool 1,000 piece puzzle. And I've got the box, and I open the box and I look at the picture on the lid so I know what the picture is supposed to fucking look like. I know what that picture is supposed to look like. And I build my puzzle every single day, and every single day, the vast majority of my puzzle is complete. I can almost see the picture, but there's still these pesky fucking pieces that are missing. Sometimes they're all coagulated into one giant missing hole. And sometimes they're scattered throughout the picture, little pieces that are missing. That has been my experience as a transgender person. Sure, the puzzle's there. Sure, I can see the picture, but there's shit missing. There's shit missing. That, that to me was growing up transgendered. That's living my life as an adult, transgendered and closeted. I never got to finish that puzzle. Every day it sat incomplete. So, yeah, I've run businesses, I've been a CEO, I've traveled the world, I've done all kinds of amazing things, and I've got 5 beautiful babies as proof that my life wasn't all that bad. But it was. Barring some very traumatic experiences in my high school years, I joined the military because I thought I had to prove to other people my masculinity, despite not really ever feeling very masculine. Circa 1999, I get done with high school and I go to college and I'm just done. In my mind, I went to college trying to be this scholarly student after all these experiences I had, and I didn't feel it. Hell, for the better part of my first year in college, the only thing I did successfully was I got so fucking high that I came to school naked. Yeah, that's what most people at Broome Community College in New York State remember me for. Remember that kid got so fucking stoned that they showed up to class naked? That was me. I had like a GPA of like 1.1. I was on super academic probation because I was so fucking depressed. I just didn't give a fuck. I didn't care. So I was looking for a way out. TikTok, I managed to screw up my stream, so hopefully I'll get it back. Let's see, Heather says I'm back on Twitch. Well, that's good. So that means I'm probably back on YouTube as well. Hopefully. I have no idea. But back to the story. We'll do our best with what we got, right? All things said and done, I joined the military because I was tired. I was just tired. That's what it boiled down to.